All right, good evening. Thank you to everyone for coming tonight. We'll get the meeting started. This is a public meeting of the School Board of West Bend Joint School District Number 1. More than 24 hours prior to the meeting, notice of the time, place, date, and subject matter of this meeting was posted at the entrance doors of the Education Service Center and at the West Bend Community Memorial Library. A copy was also sent to the Daily News, WIBD, Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, and other media sources that have requested notice of our meetings. And ask our superintendent at this time to confirm that this meeting was properly posted.
Yes, it was.
Great, thank you. Let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Right. We recognize a quorum of our board present. 5 of 6 members are present. Kurt Rebholz has an excused absence. He's enjoying a well-deserved vacation with his family, so we look forward to seeing him again at the next meeting. Next, we have approval of our agenda. It was posted in advance. I would move to approve this agenda. Would there be a second? Second. Thank you, Melanie. Motion and second to approve the agenda. Any final discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. That motion carries. We will move directly then into several recognitions. We're excited to have these groups here. We're going to start with state recognition of our East Boys Bowling Team. And Molly Hengst, our East Athletic Director, is going to kick this off. Good evening.
Good evening. Thanks for having us. We've had a very exciting and successful winter sports season, and we're excited to be here to celebrate some more of our accomplishments and successes. We're going to start with the East Boys Bowling Team, and I'm going to call up Tom Zernia to represent them.
Thank you for doing the recognition. I have the walking wounded here. John Lynn, senior, Garrett Clark, freshman, and Sean Hubbard, freshman. Sean kind of got hurt late in the season, I think, playing basketball or something. So he kind of tore a knee up. Anyhow, the Jamison Lieberman isn't here tonight. On the East Boys during the bowling season, Jamison was 3rd in fill percentage, which gave him a state singles berth. Fill percentage is the number of attempts, he either gets a strike or a spare, a mark, and he was 76%. The team had a record of 6-4. It came down to the last game of the season. If Slinger had won their match against Ozaki Port Washington, they would have advanced to state instead of the East Boys. They lost by 1 pin. So the boys were celebrating pretty early because they were bowling right next to them against West, and I think West ended up winning. But they didn't really care the last game. They were going to state, they knew that. East advanced to state. They exceeded their team average at state by 10 pins, and they finished 21st out of 28 teams. The bowling is divided up into 2 divisions, Division I and Division II, and it's done by the number of teams that we have that make it to state. They take the population and split it in half, and that's Division I, Division II. They were Division II. They were on the upper part of it, so it's very good. And that's pretty much all I got. John was a senior. Wish he was a freshman because he worked very hard at the game. He didn't know much about the game before he started, and he became a student of the game. Garrett, as everybody's noticed in bowling, you have a lot of two-handers out there. They throw the ball with 2 hands, and Garrett decided he wanted to go back to 1, and he really improved tremendously. He went and you bowled varsity almost all year, didn't you? Yeah. He was like the 6th player, and they move him in and out, and he did really, really well. improved, had them in middle school. Right now, we're in the middle of our middle school starting our season, so that's our feeder grounds for these. So that's pretty much all I've got.
Congratulations. Thank you for coming. We also have a candidate for state recognition for East Girls Bowling and West Girls Bowling. Unfortunately, neither were able to attend tonight, but I just wanted to at least verbally recognize them and should have in advance approved the pronunciation of their names, but I'm going to give it a try. From East Girls Bowling, Haley Kaler. Oh, I see nods. I got that one right. Thank you. And then from West Girls Bowling, Haley Caberl. Caberl? Cobrel. Thank you. So we congratulate those girls as well for their accomplishments for state, for bowling. Then we're on to state recognition of the West Gymnastics team. And Erin Felber, our West Athletic Director, is going to walk us through this presentation. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for having us, and I just want to congratulate again the West Gymnastics team on making it to state. They had an amazing season, and you're going to hear more about it from Coach Kim Remillard. Come on up.
Thank you, Ms. Felber. At this time, I'm going to have each girl just introduce themselves.
I'm Michaela Saboka, and I'm a junior.
I'm Mel Prinsel, and I'm a junior.
I'm Skylar McGilbert, and I'm a junior.
I'm Ava Metz, and I'm a sophomore.
I'm Peyton Lesner, and I'm a junior.
I'm Samaya Evans, and I'm a senior.
I'm Kendra Ortlieb, and I'm a junior.
I'm Nina Balkovich, and I'm also a senior.
As you can see, this next season, I will only be losing two seniors, so we look forward to next season as well. We started off our season with a score of a 127.7 in December. So moving on to February, in sectionals, we received our season high of 138.6, and we took second place. This allowed us to get to state. We also had a few girls make it individually to state as well. The top 5 athletes make it to, the top 5 athletes in each event will make it onto state. At sectional, Skylar placed 4th on the uneven bars. Where is she? And Michaela placed 5th on balance beam and 3rd on floor. And Mel placed 3rd on balance beam, 3rd in all around, and she was also our floor champion. At state, our team took 5th. We scored a 135.667. And in our individual day, Skylar placed 19th on bars. Michaela placed 24th on balance beam and tied for 13th on floor. Mel placed 6th on floor and 6th on balance beam and 8th in all around. These girls worked hard together, and many of these girls also walked away with all-state awards. Nina received all-state honorable mention for the uneven bars. Skylar, Peyton, Michaela received second team all-state for uneven bars. Mel received second team all-around as well for all-state. I would just like to thank Superintendent Wimmer and the board for recognizing the West Gymnastics team. Thank you.
You can come back for a picture, please. We got a picture opportunity. All right, congratulations. And we have a recognition for East Wrestling as well.
Back again. We're excited to celebrate a state qualifier on the east side for East Wrestling. I'm going to call up my head coach, Shane Piankowski, along with Casey Gish.
Thank you for having us. Appreciate it. So Casey, special guy for me. I have two sons that have wrestled through West Bend Wildcats and now the high school team. And Casey was, I think, kindergarten, first grade when my kids started. So got to coach him for many, many years and ended up fourth in the state tournament this year. But just recapping a couple things about him. 4-year starter for us, 2-year captain, phenomenal wrestler, puts in tons of time, wrestles year-round. During the season, he was coming to our practices, going to extra practices, private lessons, and all sorts of stuff. So really earned this in the state tournament. 47-7 this season as a record, 131-41 in career. He was a regional and sectional champ. Just a phenomenal wrestler and great leader. So in our wrestling room, we have kind of a center circle in practice where the king of the team kind of comes. And Casey's been that guy for us the last 2 years. So great wrestler, great leader. And he's been a 2-year captain. So we had a number of kids graduate 2 years ago. And so very rarely do you have somebody step in as a captain junior year, but he's been that leader for us the last couple of years. So he's one of only 4 East wrestlers all time to place twice in the top 4 at state. Casey was also 3rd at state last year. So thanks for having us, recognizing us, and Casey Gish.
All right. Thank you for coming tonight. It's always a pleasure for the board to hear everyone's accomplishments and recognize and celebrate successes with you. So thank you for taking the time to visit with us. So at this time, we're going to continue on public participation. But we also understand that especially some students in the crowd may have some other obligations tonight, and we always recommend and welcome people to stay for our public meeting. But if anyone wishes to depart at this time, we certainly understand, and we'll just take a pause for a moment. All right. In fact, while folks are exiting, we've got one individual for public participation. So this would be a good time for me to read the public participation announcement. We've come to the public participation portion of our agenda. Board Policy 187 prescribes the nature and procedures for this segment. I summarize the policy at this time, but copies of the policy are available in the back of the room, and I urge you to familiarize yourself with the policy in its entirety. Residents of the district, parents of children in district schools, and employees of the district may participate. Participants desiring to address the board should obtain and complete a participant comment card near the entry and turn it over to the president prior to the meeting or when allowed by the president. Participants may comment concerning an agenda item or a non-agenda item. Each participant will be called to the podium and given 3 minutes to speak. The participant must state his or her name in relation to the district. This information will appear in the minutes of the meeting. The board will not engage in debate concerning the remarks or take immediate action. The board may refer the matter to the superintendent, a committee, or take the remarks into consideration in future action. Board Policy 872 provides a formal process for citizen complaints, and Board Policy 520 provides a formal process for employee complaints. The board recommends use of these procedures as they guarantee a fair and timely response. So I'll invite our participant forward to speak. There will be a visible timer to help manage time and also to help ensure that all participants are heard and the meeting runs efficiently. Please abstain from conversation, comment, or applause before, during, or after public participation comments. So I invite forward Ms. Jody Geenan for her public participation. Ms. Geenan, it says here you've indicated that you are a resident of the district. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Great. The next 3 minutes are yours.
Just like I have to get, okay. Since the last school board meeting, there have been 2 public forums for school board members and other local races. The West Bend Chamber Forum and the Common Sense Citizens of Washington County Forum. They were both very good and worth the time and can be found on their Facebook pages or YouTube channels if you want to check those out. At these forums, there were some interesting issues raised. For example, in the chamber forum, one of the school board candidates mentioned that she had received a call from concerned parents about group math tests happening in our school district. if it's what it sounds like, common sense tells most people that group math tests could be a hindrance for those students who do well in math, holding them back, while possibly being helpful for those who are in the middle and who do not do so well. This is what education experts such as Dr. Duke Pesta, a UWO professor, call social justice math, because everyone tends to be learning in the same place. This is also known as diversity, inclusion, and equity, or DIE, D-I-E, because it kills good education. Another less favorite term is CRT, which is better called critical race indoctrination. I request the administration let the public know how many grade levels include group math tests, and that the school board members and candidates investigate how many curriculum resources include this social justice math. Over this past week, a parent brought to my attention that there is a class at Badger Middle School where the students are being asked to read about transgender rights for a writing project. There are other options the students can choose from, but why is transgender rights an option at all, especially in middle school? Transgenderism is sexualization. It is a controversial topic and violates Policy 381. I'm wondering whether parents were advised ahead of time about the topics being offered. I'm wondering whether the students will be presenting their essays to the class. In other words, even if a parent forbade their child to read and write about the transgender topic, would their child be listening to the topic anyway? The fact that this topic is an option is indoctrination in and of itself, because having it as an option normalizes transgenderism to the students. This has got to end. There are 3 candidates for school board who believe in unbiased education based on objective truth, actual facts, honest and reliable, content-rich resources, not indoctrination. Find their names at the bottom of the ballot on or before April 4th. Thank you for your consideration of my concerns.
All right, thank you for your comments. Just looking around to make sure there are no other public participation cards. I don't see any, so we will move on to our next agenda item, which is the consent agenda. On our consent agenda tonight, we have minutes of the March 6, 2023 regular board meeting and executive session. We have no contracts to approve, 1 resignation, 1 retirement, and then also fall 2023 early college credit program course requests, as well as Start College Now course requests, I believe. Oh, and then, of course, revenues and expenditures in the aggregate through February 28th, 2023. Now I think I have all the items on the consent agenda. Are there any questions on any items? Otherwise, I'd move to approve the consent agenda as presented. Second. Thank you, Joel. Motion and second to approve the consent agenda as presented. Final discussion. All in favor, please say aye. 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 Any opposed? All right, motion carries. We'll move on to reports, and our first item under reports is school reports, early learning, Decorah, and Fair Park. And I believe Dr. Jill Reese is going to walk us through that. Dr. Reese is our Director of Curriculum and Instruction. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing these school reports. We really had 3 schools presenting tonight, but we do have 1 principal that is out ill. So we will be starting out with early learning, and we have Jamie Malmstrom and Matt Durant presenting, and then we will have Decorah, and that's Adrian Schneider, and they will be presenting. Fair Park will be rescheduled for May.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity to come before you tonight and share some wonderful early learning program updates with you. As Dr. Reese said, my name is Jamie Malsum. I mostly oversee the Head Start program. And this is Matt Durant. He mostly oversees the Community 4K program. Before we dig in, I just want to take a moment to kind of recognize we have some community partners in the audience tonight. So here from the YMCA, we have Rob Johnson and Amy Royce. And then we have Kelly Valentino here from the Jackson Community Center. And thank you guys so much for coming to support us this evening. All right. We're going to take a look at the early learning program through the district continuous improvement lens this evening. And we're going to share key updates in each of the 4 sections of the pyramid. We're going to start with student learning first. This is our literacy slide that we have to share with you this evening. The key here indicates which students are below expectations. That's that royal blue. Meeting expectations is the purple, and then the green would be exceeding. So I'm happy to report we have our graphs here do exactly what we want them to do. They did a flip-flop for us. So in fall, you can see that we had quite a few students that were below expectations, and just like we would hope, and our February data shows that we have almost the exact same amount of students who are now meeting those expectations. So that is almost a 33% increase since the first checkpoint this year in fall, and compared to this time last year, it's about a 2% overall increase. There's another little chart up there that you'll see as we drill down even further into some of our literacy objectives. I just wanted to also highlight that one of our comprehension objectives has already been met for the year as well. So that's a later developing, more challenging skill for students, and I'm happy to report that we're at 90%. And that's largely due to all of the work that's been going on in our professional learning community teams. There we go. And then again, under student learning here, very similar trend we see with math. There, the flip-flop happened again. I would have to say that the professional learning communities, again, was a big step in supporting this work with almost 66% of our students already meeting expectations in February. And again, coaching and some peer learning walks that we've been doing this year as well. So thank you. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Matt.
Thank you, Jamie. So our next one is around safe and secure. Our goal is very similar to the previous. We want 90% of our students to achieve their developmental benchmark. Again, the graphs look very, very similar as in the previous slides. We have an exact flip-flop from below expectations moving into that meeting expectations column. We fully believe that we'll continue to meet this as we move forward. As far as what we teach for social skills and early learning, we're really focusing on making friends, as you can see on that photo on the left. Problem solving, that photo on the right, one of the students is under the blanket and they have to figure out who is missing from the group. So those kinds of skills that will continue to work with them and grow as they go through their educational careers. We really focus on sharing, waiting, taking turns, things like that. And then in engagement and customer satisfaction, this has to do with how happy our employees are in early learning. So we had two kind of groups of feedback from last year. We had the teachers who were most interested in learning walks and figuring out what's going on in other classrooms across the system. As Jamie had just identified, we're at lots of different sites throughout West Bend and Jackson. So they don't always get the chance to collaborate, and that's what they were asking for. So what we did as an action step is we really decided we're gonna make that a priority. So all of our teachers took a half day where they were able to go out and see what is happening in other classrooms around the district. We've also done a lot with professional learning communities. So Jamie talked about that briefly. Professional learning communities is that opportunity for people to connect, talk about their lessons, say, Jamie, you did something great today. How can I bring that back to my classroom? And that, I think, is part of that contributing factor that you saw early in those graphs, moving from below expectations to meeting. Our paraprofessionals had a different kind of ask. They are a very engaged group. They really wanted to be part of what's going on. So their big ask was, can we meet monthly? And so that was an easy one for Jamie and I. So we meet with them monthly, talk about what's going on in early learning and how they can continue to support our students. And then just check-ins. So we do we've made ourselves very visible this year. We're walking through the sites, checking in with employees and making sure that they're happy in their jobs. That's what the graph on the bottom right represents, or the table, I should say, on the bottom right. Last year, Jamie and I were new administrators to early learning. We were very happy with 81% of our staff saying that they were satisfied with their job, but we didn't quit there. So we're happy to report that this year we just got our results back and 97.1% of our staff are very satisfied with their jobs. So this is the best slide. I get to share all the fun stuff that goes on in early learning. This is what makes our program special. All of the pictures here talk about nature-based and play-based learning and how that contributes to that growth that you saw earlier. So some of them that I want to highlight at the top right now, kids get to go out on a maple sugaring kind of expedition at River Edge. This kiddo is eating a pancake with syrup. Part of the tradition at River Edge is you eat a pickle with syrup. I'm here to report that it doesn't make either one better. They're very good separate. Another part of River Edge is in the bottom left, there's some baby sturgeon. So late fall, kind of after we met with you guys, they breed hundreds of baby sturgeon and then have the opportunity to release them into Lake Michigan. And we had an unseasonably warm winter, as you guys know, so not a lot of ice fishing like we would normally do at River Edge, but it did create a lot of mud. So Superintendent Wimmer and I talked about that photo on the bottom right, which is kind of the before picture, and we're a little concerned about what happened to that girl's pink clothes in the after picture. This is another great part of our partnership with the Y. So that is a picture from the backyard of the Y, and I just want to say, thanks to Rob and Amy for not complaining too much about the extremely dirty floors at the Y. So that concludes our presentation. If you have any questions, we're happy to entertain those now.
Great. Any questions?
I've got one. I can't remember, what kind of programming do we offer for summer program in either Head Start or 4K?
Sure.
Summer programming.
Sure. So summer school is big, and we push that with all of our students. Last year we had roughly 100 students enrolled in getting ready for kindergarten. We have approximately 30 already signed up. It's early still. We believe that, the numbers will be there again, but that's a really great opportunity for kids to continue to engage in learning over the summer, and it is what the class says, it's getting ready for kindergarten. There's also Jumpstart, which is a one-day event in August. That Jumpstart event gives them the opportunity to go to their actual school that they will be attending, meet some of the teachers, get an idea of the layout of the building, things like that.
Thanks. Other questions? Just one general question on the statistics around really either of those pages with the blue bar and the purple bar. So the fall Head Start, that's essentially a measurement when individuals are coming into the class, is that right?
Exactly. That checkpoint, that's the first one of the year, and that typically happens the first or second week in October.
Sure. And then the winter would be kind of in the middle of the year then, the winter Head Start?
Yeah, the beginning of February.
Sure. And so when we indicate the goal is 90% will meet or exceed, that would be a measurement at the end of the year? Is that how that's
Exactly.
measured?
Yep,
Okay.
by the end of May.
All right. Look forward to receiving those reports. Certainly on the right track.
We are.
Great. Other questions? All right, thank you.
I don't have a question. I just have a comment that I wanted to say. I think it's great that the job satisfaction has gone up so high to 97.1%. I think that's a big accomplishment, and
Thank you.
happy that you've done that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. We now invite forward, let's see, I think we're going to talk about, yeah, that's right, Decorah. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. I'm Adrienne Schneider, principal at Decorah Elementary School. Very happy to be here this evening. So I will start with the same triangle that Jamie and Matt started with, just highlighting some of our goals that we have here. So I'll take you through each of those this evening. So starting with our literacy goal, I've got a couple of cute first graders here to show you as they're highlighting some of their nonfiction writing that they just participated in the last couple of weeks here. So I'm sharing with you our data around our STAR assessment, which is what we take 3 times during the year. So when I was here in the fall, I shared with you our fall starting data. So we took our winter assessment back in December. So I'm sharing at the end, on that right column is our end of the year, where we expect our students to be. So you can see there in winter, we took that in December, which is we took it about a month earlier than we typically do. And some of our classrooms, grade levels are already at or above where we would expect for the end of the year. And some of our grade levels are approaching or just getting to the point where we're going to be meeting that goal. So we have a lot of activities that are happening in our building to be supporting our students with their literacy achievement. Our intervention team, our reading team are pushing into the classroom to be supporting learning. I talked about that in the fall, where we're not pulling students out of the classroom. We're trying to push in so that they can be a part of the classroom learning to the greatest degree possible. We are also having our literacy coach work with the teachers to support strategies and modeling what that looks like in the classroom. Teachers are visiting each other in their classrooms. And then every week, teachers are either engaged in data, either looking at the data from their classrooms or with their coach to pull that apart. What does that mean? What do we want to do for strategies? How did it work? Do we have to tweak? And looking at that and how it's supporting their learners. So it's just an ongoing journey as we look towards how that is showing how our students are growing. Right now, our third and fourth grade teachers are really engaged in how students are responding to stories with writing. That's a really large piece, especially with state testing, and we're noticing that over time our students have not done the best with that work, and so they've put a concerted effort into that part of writing over the last several weeks especially, but it's been a focus of ours over the last couple of years, and so we're really noticing a great strength from our students, so we're anxious to see how that plays out with the state testing here coming up in the next couple of weeks. Moving on to math, we want our students to increase their math proficiency by 5%. Again, looking at those STAR scores. So on the right column is the end goal by the end of this school year. That middle column there is the winter assessment, again, taken in December. So we had some really nice scores shown in the winter by a couple of our grade levels. I'd like to point out in our second grade, we actually had a fall to winter increase of 15% by our second graders. So that was a really nice improvement. Our fourth grade didn't have as much of a growth from fall to winter, but in our professional learning communities with our fourth grade team, as well as our second grade team, actually, the teachers are seeing that students are performing. When they give the end of the unit assessments, they are noticing students are scoring at 75 to 80% proficient on those end of unit assessments. And so they are on track where we think that we believe that the students will meet that end of year goal. In addition, when the students took the test in December, in fourth grade specifically, the way that our curriculum is set up, the students hadn't yet been exposed to some of the material that they saw on the test, and so the students hadn't had the exposure yet. So now they have, and so we anticipate having very different scores here in the spring, and the teachers have been very explicit about some of that instruction. And again, with the end of unit assessments, they feel confident that students will reach that end of year goal. And then also through, again, the professional learning communities, looking at the data, pulling that back, what strategies are we working on, being more intentional about that work through their classroom instruction to make sure that the students are going to be successful. And then these, the students in this picture, those are our first graders working through their polydrons, working to create those 3D shapes, just that hands-on learning that's so critical, especially in those early years, because to be talking about 3D shapes is very abstract, so they have to be touching and molding and doing in order to understand what that looks like and feels like. Our engagement and customer satisfaction goal, I'm very excited to say that we have met our goal that we set out for ourselves this year to increase the percentage of staff who recommend Decorah as a place to work as measured by the engagement survey. So on a scale of 0 to 10, how likely are you to recommend Decorah as a place to work? We have met that goal. The survey that was just completed back in February, we did increase the percentage of staff who recommend Decorah. And then we also felt it important to have our building be a place where people felt that they were recognized for the work that they do. This picture indicates one of the things that we have 3 to 4 times a week. Staff are recognized over announcements by their colleagues. And so we have just because slips that are filled out for each staff member. This is an example of one of them that was read recently. They receive a piece of Dove chocolate that also goes into their mailbox. And so students get to learn a little bit about the staff member who is being recognized, and then they're just honored for the work that they do. And it's just a nice little way to start their day. This next goal, we got very specific with. As we look at our safety and security goals and our behavior incidents over time, it's a great thing to notice that over time, 90% or better of our students receive 0 to 1 behavior referrals across our building. And so we decided as a school team that we wanted to be more specific about what our goals would be. So over the summer, our school team decided that our goal would be to reduce behavior incidents that occur on the playground and in the classroom for students in 1st through 4th grade by 35%. So we took a cohort of students from last year who were in kindergarten and through 3rd grade, decided to move those kids forward and look at them as 1st through 4th graders this year. We are noticing that we are not on track for that 35% decrease. However, I wanted to share with you that when we look at the data overall, 98% of our students have received 0 or 1 referral on the playground, and 96% of our students have 0 to 1 referral in the classroom. So while our overall goal isn't quite there, we're doing well, especially in the area of, I'm a big believer in it's okay for kiddos to make mistakes if they learn from them and they move on. And so if we have kids who have 1 referral and they learn from that and they don't get another one, we're doing okay. And so that is a huge celebration as we think about what our job is, especially in the world that I live in, kindergarten through 4th grade. The picture there that we have, every week we celebrate our students in how they're showing the Decorah way, and we highlight one of the specific areas that were one of our tenants, and the kids are brought together for a picture. It's posted on Facebook. The kids get a backpack tag, and then they also get a postcard in the mail. And it's really exciting for the kids. I actually ran out and had to order some, and it took about 2 weeks to get in. And every single day, the kids that were waiting on them were asking me, Mrs. Schneider, when are they coming? When are they coming? And so I know that it means a lot to the kids to get those, and they're pretty proud of them. So that's one way that we recognize the kids, and that bulletin board is in one of our main hallways for the students to be able to look at every day. So, all right, and finally, here are just some fun pictures of some happenings here at Decorah. That top left picture is our custodian. He was recognized at one of our recent assemblies for just going above and beyond. He retrieved a retainer from the same kid twice in the trash, as well as a bracelet from another student. And so he was honored just for being a super kind person. The bottom left picture is a puzzle. We have a puzzle and a coloring paper in the staff workroom just for people to decompress as they're waiting for the copy machine or as they're unjamming the copy machine and need a little bit of stress relief. Kenzie in the middle there, she won a golden ticket. Mrs. Garrett in the library likes to just really keep the kids excited about reading, and so she'll hide those golden tickets, and then the kids get a small prize as they find them. That one happened to be during Read Across America Week. And then at the top right, we are in the middle of One Book, One School, where we are reading about Humphrey the hamster. We have a couple of different books happening in our building depending on the level. And so that is, oh my goodness, his name is escaping me. Well, that is, that one has a name. Well, it's not Humphrey. This hamster actually has a name. And it's escaping me.
He's probably watching and completely offended.
Probably. I know I'm going to think of it as soon as I sit down. But anyway, so the kids get to see his different adventures that he goes on our TV lobby TV. And then we're wrapping that up this week. We have trivia questions. The kids every staff member and student gets a book. And so it's just brings us all together kind of in a common theme throughout this month. And so that's been fun. And then the bottom right, that was a picture from, seems like forever ago, with a walking club that we do on Wednesdays with staff who are available to just connect everybody. So thanks for allowing me to share with you the happenings at Decorah. What questions can I answer?
Questions?
The hamster name.
Butters.
There you go. Oh, nice. Very
Very
nice.
good. Very nice.
Butters.
All right. Thank you for the presentation. Hearing no questions.
All right. I don't know where I'm going next. I'll leave it there.
All right, those were our school reports. We will now move to the policy committee report, and Mr. Joel Ongert will report out on that.
Sure.
Good evening.
Policy, thank you. Policy met on March 9th and March 16th. Thank you, John, for running the 16th meeting. I was out of town for work. We have pretty much gotten through our 400 series policies, and we'll be now bringing those to the board for first reading, second reading, and so forth. The past couple of meetings, we did talk more about nepotism policy, which is on our second reading tonight. We had a really nice kind of group workshop with a lot of our administrators on March 9th, principals, assistant principals, athletic directors, talking about the board policies relating to student behavior and how those kind of mesh together with our student handbooks and family handbooks, and what belongs in policy, what belongs in a student handbook, family handbook. And so there'll be some additional work done on that as it relates to the handbooks. But policies, some of them were edited, some of them completely changed, but those policies will now start coming forth to the board. So appreciate everybody's hard work in that. And then we'll talk about 800 and 900 series policies soon, which are smaller sections, but those will be next.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any questions for Joel? All right, we'll move on then to Superintendent's report and Superintendent Wimmer.
Yeah, I just, I know we applauded for our athletes prior, but just anytime a student represents West Bend, their team and our schools and our community, just a thank you again on behalf of administration and board for their representation. Again, to be selected for state when there's over 420 school districts is something special, so we thank them for that. Also thanking Melanie Ergot, who is serving as our interim clerk since Tani has stepped down, so thank you for that. Lots of signatures. She's getting down. One thing that's been in the paper, I know I've spoken about it in the past, I participated in the UWWC Washington County Campus committee that our county executive put together, talked about kind of the K-12 perspective prior, and you'll see that making the news as a piece has gone forward to their committee in looking at a more expansive community college concept. Superintendents met again this morning to just talk about a letter of support, anything that provides additional opportunities for our students. And so they were looking at, again, some of the things that Marine Park's been offering, some legislative asks, some things to perhaps restore athletics, which have been removed, things of that nature to expand opportunities for students across that. So I'll just keep you apprised of that work as it continues to move forward. But again, as area county superintendents, will be writing a letter of shared support for anything that provides students opportunities as we go forward is always welcome. Many of our students, again, through Start College Now, or early college credits, are graduating, leaving us with up to a year or even more under their belt of opportunities, whether it's technical, trade, or college courses. So that's always exciting. Also exciting is it's the week before spring break. So today's the first official day of spring. So we had the sunshine. We're not quite there in temperatures. So just a reminder, next week is spring break. We're off Monday, March 27th through Friday, March 31st. And we'll have some amended hours here at the Education Service Center, hours of 9 to 3 each day during that week. So just a reminder for our public. An exciting event. Mark your calendars for Thursday at 6:30. This week is the Rock and Jazz Fest. Again, that's Thursday, 6:30. This will include all the co-curricular bands across the school district. So it will be Silverbrook's Viking Attack Pep Band, Badgers Jazz Ensemble, and Pulse, and the WB3 from the high schools. So this concert will also feature guest performances from the BC Brass Band, and that features several West Bend alumni. So that's Thursday, 6:30, and it is a fun event to attend. Speaking of events, if you hadn't gone to the Hub yet, the District Art Show is still hung. We'll be there through the end of the month, so I would encourage everyone. There's student art from all levels on display still at the Hub. Last week, the Charity Week results were in, so you'll recall our students reporting about their Charity Week efforts, so we had some recognition. So our East and West high schools presented their donations to 6 charitable organizations highlighted as part of their 19th annual Charity Week. They raised a total of $51,500, the highest amount that they have ever collected in a single year since the inception of the event in 2004. So they went to a variety of charities across the area, but local businesses donated, matched funds, or in some cases doubled funds received, included American companies, Valor Property Management, West Bend Medical, Sunrise Rotary, West Bend Mutual Insurance, Riverside Brewery, Delta Defense, and Regal Wear. Our students, our student council, everyone would tell you that that week is possible by community contributions and community partnerships. So thank you for that. And one thing that we missed last month, and I would be remiss, we missed a record in February. Carson Bauer, a sophomore at West Bend West, broke a boys basketball school record for most points in a single game on February 28th when he scored 43 points. The previous record of 42 points, so he just edged it in there, was set in 1983 by Hall of Famer Billy Albrecht, a teacher at West High School and assistant coach for West boys basketball team. So congratulations to Carson. We're sorry we didn't catch that a little bit sooner. And that's all I had for my report.
Thank you. Any questions for Superintendent Wimmer? All right. Hearing none, we'll move into discussion items. And our first discussion item tonight is post-employment full premium insurance option. Mr. Lenny Hansen, our Director of Human Resources, will walk us through this topic. Good evening.
Good evening. I'll try to keep this topic as brief and understandable as possible. It's around some health insurance minutia. Our current retirement benefit has several different tiers that employees are eligible to receive depending on a variety of factors, including years of service and age at the time of retirement. We have a group that is sunsetting over time who are eligible to stay on the district's health insurance after retirement until they hit age 65 and become Medicare eligible. Those are called our medical continuation group individuals. So there is a pretty unusual caveat about the district's plan that we'd like to address as part of this topic. Basically, it allows someone who has retired and received their full up to 8 years of insurance through the district in retirement. If they have a dependent who may be younger than them and is eligible to stay on the insurance after those 8 years, the current plan allows that, which would mean that not only is that individual receiving a retirement benefit of 8 years of insurance when they retire, but then more years of insurance for a younger spouse, for example, or a child dependent that would then carry that benefit even longer than 8 years. Talked with our benefits consultants as well as some other districts. Pretty unusual to have that benefit for retirees beyond those 8 years. We have a very small number of people taking advantage of that as well. As I note in the summary and board docs for you, there's only 3 participants that are currently enrolled that way. What we would recommend is sunsetting that benefit while grandfathering the people that are currently covered under that benefit. That would avoid any disruption for anybody that's currently using the benefit, but prevent future enrollees from jumping on beyond those 8 years after retirement. Gets us, I think, in line with what's a little bit more typical in the market, as well as just reduces liability by a small amount for the district. But, you know, in the world of health insurance, where, you know, it only takes one claim to really make a significant dent in your costs, I think it's a liability that there isn't really a need for the district to absorb long-term. So this is being brought forth for discussion here. Again, kind of a little bit of a complicated topic, but we would bring it forth for action at the next meeting with an action, recommended action being to end any new enrollees under this extended option while grandfathering the 3 people that are currently on it. Those grandfathers would be done by October of 2024. So 2 of them be done this year, and then the last one would continue into next year for part of the year.
And they're done because of age?
Because of age. So
They
dependent
hit
reaching
60.
age 26 or the spouse reaching age 65.
Got it.
Other questions? So some time to digest this. This will be brought back at a future meeting, perhaps the first one in April.
That's the plan right now.
That's the plan? Great. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are now on to policy second reading. Superintendent Wimmer, I believe you're going to walk us through that item.
Yes, if you take a look, this is a second reading, so you've seen these prior. I think our largest one that we took back to committee in both of our March discussions were around nepotism, retaining that, but again, straining out employee and board. At our last meeting, the question was around the ability to add sibling into the board piece, so that was more clear. While not a lineal descendant, would we be able to add siblings? So I did receive, I said I would pursue legal guidance regarding that addition. Legal had no concerns about the addition of that. So just a discussion point for the full board tonight. I would have no problem pushing in and adding that to that language around board members and including that word sibling. If there's any discussion, question, concern, that was something that came out of our last committee meeting.
Is there any objections to that addition? It seems consistent with what we had talked about a policy. I think that's a good add.
Correct. So then I would make that change going. And the others were really cleaning up our entrance age, open enrollment practice, and recommending some removal of some pieces. They were so stated in some other areas, if anyone has any specific questions.
Questions on any of those items? All right, hearing none, what would normally occur is we would bring these back then for third reading, which would mean the opportunity for adoption at the next meeting, correct?
Correct.
Okay. With regard to the nepotism policies, I know there was some discussion around, should it come before this board? Should we perhaps wait? This is a discussion item, so we're not taking action on it, but I would certainly welcome if the board has thoughts on that, one way or the other. And I think on the one hand, I don't know if there's an artificial hurry necessarily to put these through. On the other hand, if we always waited for the next board and the next board, we would never get anything done. So I normally would say we would bring it forward for a third reading, and if the subsequent board wishes to change it, they certainly have the ability to. But I certainly welcome other thoughts. And obviously, at the third reading, if we don't want to move forward with it next week, or next meeting, we wouldn't need to.
I would agree, but I think with it being so close, I would say we push it off one more meeting, to allow the board that's going to have to live with the decision, for the next 3 years.
I think there's some appeal to that option, and at the same time, I wrestle a little bit with it because this board has spent a lot of time on it, really, and thought about it. We'd be asking a board to kind of pick it up fresh from that point forward. I'm not sure if the first meeting they come in, it would be necessarily great to say, all right, it's on the agenda. But I understand your point, and that's why I'm, I see both sides. I see both sides. Nancy?
I agree, I see both sides, but I do agree with the statement that this board has been the one to go over it. The policy committee has spent a lot of time on this issue, and there's been a lot of extra effort on the part of legal getting involved, and we're well apprised of what's going on. I agree with the new board. If they want to change it down the line, they certainly can, but at this point, I think we bring it forward at the next meeting.
Well, we normally come forward then for third reading, and at that time, if the board wishes to take action or not take action, we can make that decision at that point, correct?
Absolutely. So when it's put on the agenda in that way, then you can choose to, it can die without any recommendation at all. We can leave it as its own standalone item. It can fail to get a second. It can fail to pass. So that would be a way for the board to kind of exercise that right, or you could leave it as a, it may go through.
Sure, or
for
move.
action. So you.
Or move to table.
Exactly.
Sure.
You could do any of those pieces for that.
Okay. Well, I encourage our board members to think about that as we
Is
prepare
there-
for the next meeting.
Is there much difference between our current nepotism policy and the new policies, other than the fact that we split out employees and school board members?
We can lay them in side by side to look at that and kind of redline what those nuances are. If you go back to our original, we redlined in the original policy some things that needed to change. I think the new language provides clarity. It provides some specifics that maybe were a little bit more questionable, or were not questionable in a sense, it just leaned on stating state statutes instead of just saying exactly what that meant. So I think the areas that we had highlighted and read in our original work were all attended to, and those were the legal questions. So we've cleared all of those.
I appreciate the discussion. I think it'll appear on our agenda then as in normal course for third reading, and we can decide at that time if we're going to move forward or take a different action.
Yeah, I'll make sure in kind of that memo to lay out all the board's options so that you can choose to table at that time. You could choose to do a lot of things, but.
Okay. Very good.
Great.
Then we'll move to policy first reading items.
So as Joel said, we just have a couple, just out of the 400s, a couple dangling ones just to call attention to. 412.1 is full-time student status. We're going to bring that forward along with graduation. It just made more sense. And 432, we had discussions at the board level. We'll work through with those who are frontline on enrollment because it just talks about school choice and all those. We want to make sure we've got that. So you'll see the large chunk of this next slate broken down for review. There's student conduct, student dress, student discipline, student suspensions, and expulsions were all in alignment. There was no additional recommendations. They were recently revised. They have current legal language, all of those. They met that test. They give us that umbrella language. Again, I think what'll be really interesting for the board, as we said, a new board kind of coming forward, but the policy committee staying intact and working through that connection between the handbook and how it's laid out and some of the policy. Policy is that kind of umbrella, but really getting into some nuances there. So these were for review, no recommendations. Any questions on any of those? Okay, and again, feel free to give us feedback in addition outside the meeting as well as you think of things. The next one was 411, equal education opportunities. Again, the current name was pushing together equality of education, opportunity, pupil non-discrimination, and harassment. We unpacked that. So you can see some red line, you can see some green, bringing most recent language, but the yellow was all of the components around harassment. So we kind of looked at those side by side. We have harassment and bullying coming a little bit later because we were asking what gets carried forward out of that piece. So that's kind of why there's the variance in those. So again, disregarding the yellow, we were saying that pertinent pieces would fall into harassment over on kind of that other side. I'll speak to that a little bit later. But again, just in alignment, bringing up to speed that language. The next one was 422.1 foreign exchange programs. We revised it to reflect best practice, just some nuances in that language. There was some information around quid pro quo on seats across programs, things like that, that we haven't participated in. So it's just an update. We also, in yellow was a highlight. There is no need for us to hold people accountable for the 30 working days. We had a lengthy discussion around that. We can enroll in a tighter time frame, especially, you know, we've had some host families fall through or want to change, and that's a barrier. As long as I'm within a regular enrollment period, I'm not creating a disruption to a classroom, a school, et cetera, that can be managed through a regular process. So that's why that one's highlighted. We agreed that we would strike that as well. In 440, it's just an overall around student responsibilities, but we noticed that one was in first person. It had an I there instead of just third person students. That was the only change to that. The conduct on buses, we had a discussion around really that understanding that it's not just kind of the typical yellow school bus, it's any transportation under the district. So our changes reflect that piece. Student alcohol and drug use, we had just that primary paragraph in black, and we just fleshed that out and added a considerable amount of language there. And the one is going to go back to students. We brought this forward. This is, again, as I referenced, anti-bullying, anti-harassment. We really talked through, we tightened up from old policy, the new language, looked at it through that lens of that 411 policy, and we were gonna do some testing with a student group. Jen Potter, the executive principal at the high school, and I are going to work that through and get perspective of students. And, you know, does this speak to, we were talking about specifically sexual harassment being added into this as a call out so that students could understand and see that. So we're taking this one to do a little bit more work before we bring that forward. We anticipate some revisions, but I wanted to put it in front of the whole group for some initial thoughts if you had those. Any questions on the ones that are up for revision? Next steps. Okay. For addition, there was no language around this next slate of policies. So the first one is student use of tobacco and related products. We had one in the 8 series that talked about tobacco products not being allowed at all by students, that there would be consequences. This really fleshes that out. So again, it's getting at vaping, e-cigarettes, all of those pieces. So that's new language. Student use of electronic communication devices when that's appropriate, understanding that those can be confiscated at any time by school staff. It's something we talked a lot about, especially with our associate principals who, you know, kind of that is falling to them for discipline and just what would be helpful language. So that is new. Student use and possession of weapons, again, in the 800s, which is around community, we have that so stated. This puts us in alignment with that policy. We wouldn't get rid of that, but it's really talking about the student piece of it. So if you were looking for understanding in that. And then student search, you'll see for removal, we recommended 446.1 search and seizure. It's specific to student lockers. We would recommend removal and full replacement with this language. It expands and has students understanding search of their lockers, which is our property, personal belongings if there's reasonable suspicion, vehicles, and the use of K-9 units in our school. As available. So that was new language as well. So I think some good additions for policy. Any questions about additions? Right? And then again, for removal, I had missed last time on our second reading list, and for that I apologize, but you see we cleaned up entrance age, which means we could remove 421.1 because we've covered it in the overall 421 on entrance age. And then again, that search and seizure expansion could be removed because we're greatly expanding it under that. So with any first reading, like we said, I know you've taken a look at those, a lot to digest. Please let me know if you have any feedback around those. We'll bring that back to committee for discussion consideration and prior to the next reading for the board.
Any questions, observations on any of the items listed? All right, hearing none, we'll see them for another reading in a future meeting. Thank you. I believe Superintendent Wimmer, you have the next agenda item as well, which is next steps in right-sizing the district.
I do. I had foreshadowed this in a February 6th board report to the board and community, just talking about next steps and staying on track, knowing that we'll have 3 new people joining the board. We don't want to take pause unnecessarily in the work ahead. So we've got that software purchase. We've onboarded that. You'll see a new feature on our website. If you input your address, it'll automatically pop up which school you're assigned to for elementary. So that's one part of that puzzle. I'll start bringing forward as we use that software, different configurations, different opportunities for efficient and, again, right-sizing the school. Another piece is the next team and board members. Some of you will be remaining, but our largest thing is around finance, facilities, and understanding and doing some strategic planning with the community, having the big discussion around facilities and saying the word referendum and where does our community want to see us go. So the board is positioned with information so that they can have discussion and if there's any action that they need to take on that in the future. When you think about those timelines, you work on those with a partner. So we'd like to go ahead and send out a request for proposals, and I talked about this last time. But it's where they're taking our assessments and our updated facilities pieces, that 25-year plan as it ends, and they're validating that work, they're doing the updates, they're looking through the safety security pieces, carving that out, any strategic planning, community conversations around our facilities specifically, and then any referendum planning if that were so needed. Now, again, anytime I say that word, I always caution, that's a board's decision. The next opportunity for this board to even look at potentially having a referendum would be a year from now. But if you were to make that decision as a future board, you have to make that determination by January of that. So you're really looking at community engagement that needs to start in spring and lead you into fall, so that you're having discussions in a timely manner leading up to January. So again, I feel it's timely to do a request for proposals for those services. We are not bound to those services. We are not obligating ourselves, but at least we're getting in information, people interested in looking at that work. The whole next board would have to entertain that, be part of, do we want to select something? Do we want to do something? But that way we're not off track. So it's kind of lengthy, but again, I need to position the future board should they need to have those discussions that they have access to information they need. So again, I think it's a safe way to not over-obligate the district. There's no financial obligation. Like I said, we don't even need to bring those RFPs to the next board unless they want to see those. But I think we need to put them out for people to look at and get that ready. So any thoughts or questions from the board around that?
Just confirming it's not a financial obligation, you just said that. So really it's equipping the board, and the board may decide to move forward or not move forward?
Correct. No contractual obligation, no financial obligation. It's simply putting out a request for proposals for that type of work. And again, we would wait then for the whole next board to be seated to engage in conversations around that.
Seems like it would be good to have those options available.
Correct.
Other questions, comments? All right.
Thank you. We'll push some of that out this week to start that process at least, and I'll keep you informed all along the way.
Great, thank you. All right, we move on to action items. We have several action items on our agenda tonight, and the first is Spanish Chicago field trip. And Dr. Rice is coming back to the podium to walk us through this item.
Thank you. So I'm bringing forward the Spanish field trip to Chicago. We do have a short turnaround on this, and our superintendent was kind enough to foreshadow it at the last board meeting, but I'm bringing this forward for action. You do have items in board docs for board members if you'd like to view any of them. The trip takes place on August 6th, and that's the reason we have the short turnaround on this. I'm sorry. April, yes. Thank you. So they are planning to travel to Chicago to go to the Pilsen neighborhood to view a Mexican art museum and then to go to an authentic Mexican restaurant. The cost is $10 per student. They would leave on April 6th and return on the same day by the end of the school day. This includes students from the Spanish 5 and 6 classes, and they again would pay $10 and return on the same day. So if there's other questions, I'm happy to try to answer any questions you have, but it's really, this is in place of, they had proposed an out-of-country trip last year that was not granted because of the safety and security of that trip. So this is kind of an answer to that so the students can take a trip and get some authentic experience.
And just a unique thing, this was something that was student-driven, student-proposed. They asked, kind of given that out-of-country experience and looking at how the German group took a Chicago trip, the students did some research. They actually proposed it. They found an advisor to help sponsor and do that. So it was unique that it was really
Bit of a grassroots effort.
Yeah, it was really student-led, so that was nice to see.
Great. Any questions?
I have one question. I've not obviously been to the Pilsen neighborhood, but has anybody been there? Is it a nice neighborhood, you know, like safety-wise? Because obviously Chicago is a pretty big city and there's lots of different areas. So I guess that was my only question.
Yeah, I have not attended there myself, but if you like Google it and look it up online, it looks very colorful, artful, those types of things. I have not attended myself.
But you can look at certain regions and those, they've identified one that they feel meets that need without putting them in danger.
Okay.
Hence, they didn't go to their original trip.
Sure.
Correct.
Good question.
Yep.
Others?
I'll move to approve the Spanish Chicago field trip as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Joel. Thank you, Nancy. Motion and second to approve the Spanish Chicago field trip as presented. Any final discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. That motion carries.
Thank
Dr. Reese,
you.
appreciate it. All right. So let's see. We have a number of other action items. Superintendent Wimmer, just remind me, the Head Start training and technical assistant plans, Head Start selection criteria, Head Start budget narrative and refunding application, and the 2023 summer school program. These are all items that we saw at the prior, for discussion at the prior meeting.
As was the staffing plan. All were
Staffing
previously
plan.
presented. No additional information. Head Start, again, a lot of technical pieces that need to come forward annually for the team. So feel free to move through those and call those who need to the podium, only if the board has questions.
Oh, perfect. I was going to say you have members of administration here to address any questions if we have them.
Yep.
All right. So unless the board objects, what I'm going to do is tick through these one by one. And if there are any questions, we'll invite the members of administration forward to address them. Otherwise, simply ask if there are other questions, and we can decide to take action right away. So next, Head Start training and technical assistant plans. Are there any questions on this item?
Motion to approve.
Second. Motion and second to approve the Head Start training and technical assistant plans as presented. Any final discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. We move then to the Head Start selection criteria. Are there any questions on this item?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Joel. Thank you, Nancy. Motion and second to approve the Head Start selection criteria as presented. Any final discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. That motion carries. Next, we consider the Head Start budget narrative and refunding application. Are there any questions on this item? Hearing none, I would move to approve the Head Start budget narrative and refunding application as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Thank you, Joel. Motion and second. Any final discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. And lastly, almost lastly, 2023 summer school program. Any questions with regard to that item? Hearing none, I would move to approve the 2023 summer school program as presented. Is there a second? Second. Thank you. Melanie, motion and second. Any final discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. And on to the 2023-2024 staffing plan. Are there any questions on this item? All right, hearing none, I would move to approve the 2023-2024 staffing plan as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Joel. Motion and second to approve the plan. Any final discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, that motion carries. Thank you for allowing us to efficiently move through those items. We move to the board meeting calendar, and on our calendar, we have curriculum committee meetings scheduled on March 21, 8:30 a.m. here at the Education Service Center. There's also one scheduled for April 18th at the Education Service Center with the time yet to be set. So we'll watch for postings on that.
Yep, just a reminder with the absence of Tani, Melanie's looking for a partner in that one was already posted and had been set and communicated. So if anyone can sub in at that 8:30 time tomorrow, that would be appreciated. But we can leave that time open for the next meeting, just so we can set around someone who could sub in at that committee meeting as well. Thank you.
Great, all right.
You hold the meeting with just one member? You can.
It's not optimal, but we can.
I'm sorry. Can you tell us, approximately how long do you anticipate that meeting lasting, just for our schedules? How lengthy is the agenda?
So we're scheduled for 2 hours, but I think the longest we've gone is about 55 minutes as of late.
So roughly an hour, perhaps tomorrow, if they were subbing in?
Okay.
Generally? Okay, that's helpful. So 45 minutes to an hour, probably, possibly, okay. And if anyone's interested, they should reach out, they can reach out to me, or to you?
Yep, sure, yep. Any one of us, Melanie, myself, or Jill would take that. We just ask if you can make tomorrow, you'd let us know this evening, and then future you can consider, look at that date and look at some optimal times so that we could work on scheduling.
Great. All right, so those are the curriculum committee meetings. We also have regular board meetings scheduled on April 10th and April 24th here at the Education Service Center, both currently scheduled for 5:30, but we remind folks to take a look at the official postings in case those times would need to change. Any questions on the board meeting calendar? Any questions related to items for follow-up and communication?
I heard a few items that we would follow up with the board on during public comment, so I'll make sure and do that.
Great, thank you. Other items? Right, hearing none, we've reached the end of our planned agenda. We have an item that's appropriate to discuss in executive session. So I'd move to adjourn into executive session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.851C to consider employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, and take any such action if necessary based on its discussion, namely evaluation. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Nancy. Motion and second to adjourn into executive session. And I remembered this is a roll call vote, so I will go ahead and take the roll. Mr. Holtz is absent. Mr. Donaldson?
Yes.
Ms. Aragot? Yes. Mr. Swigert votes yes. Mrs. Justman?
Yes.
And Mr. Ongert?
Yes.
All right, by roll call vote, that motion carries. Thank you for attending tonight. We stand adjourned into executive session.